Welcome aboard. You're listening to Flight Plan Quick Consults, your go-to podcast for veterinary insights that are fast, focused, and designed to elevate your practice. I'm your host, Brenda Tassava Medina from Encore Veterinary Consulting. Whether you're between appointments or heading into a strategy session, we've got takeoff ready tips, tools, and takeaways to keep your team soaring. So buckle up as we set a course for the middle manager gap, why your leaders feel stuck. Today's panel includes Melissa Maudlin, Angela Gainey, and Amy Brauns. Melissa, tell our listeners a little about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Brenda. My name, again, it's Melissa, and I live in Orlando, Florida. I've been in veterinary medicine for about 20 or so years. Been working with practice leaders directly for about 12 of those years, and currently serving as the VP of HR at Encore Vet Group, and love coaching and developing our leaders.
Thanks, Melissa. Next up is Angela Gainey.
Again, my name is Angela. I am a veterinary practice in East Ohio. I have 3 practices in that territory, and on the side, I enjoy practice coaching as well, and been in the industry for about 16 years and held my CVPM for about 8 years.
Great. Nice to have you on the episode today. And
Thank
not to be
you.
missed, Amy Brauns, who's been with us before, but refamiliarize everyone with who you are.
Thanks, Brenda. I'm Amy Brauns. I have been in the vet field, for about 28 years. Have pretty much worked in every position of the practice except for vet. I am currently the hospital administrator for a privately owned practice in Baltimore with 3 locations. Have my RVT and CVPM.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I brought the 3 of you together to talk about a very big topic, which is that middle layer of manager. And I want to start off with helping our listeners understand what is the biggest mistake practices make immediately after promoting someone into a leadership role. Let's start things with you, Amy.
So I had a couple different things, but it sort of had to rewind a little bit because honestly, I think one of the biggest mistakes that we do is we find this stellar employee that is just killing it in their role, whether they're a technician, a CSR, whatever. And the next logical step would be to promote them into a management role without really thinking about some of their inherent characteristics and qualities that would allow them to go from this fantastic technician on the floor to a great leader. So I think, doing that and sort of giving them this sink or swim mentality of, all right, you're a great tech. Guess what? You're now a practice manager or a supervisor. Here you go. And not really provide the resources, the coaching, that they need, or that they don't even know if they need. It's just sort of hand it to them and we expect them to do it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we've seen in our practice multiple times. It's been a hard lesson to learn.
I think that's an interesting point, what they're about to experience, because I think that they're totally unprepared for that moment when they walk through a door and everybody stops talking.
Yeah.
And I've heard that again and again. When it first happened with my team in Indianapolis, I think I just promoted someone to lead technician. She came to our leadership meeting and she's like, I walked into treatment, everybody stopped talking. I said, welcome to leadership.
Yeah, that sounds
Uh,
about right.
yeah. What are your thoughts on this, Angela?
I agree with everything that Amy said. I think that there is a point that we don't really see firsthand. We're thinking about, oh, this individual would be great for this position because they're so good at these skills. And we just need to clone them and let's have them lead these individuals and teach them to be as awesome as they are. But there is a key mistake that can be made is if you don't recognize that transition from peer to leadership, that is a huge adjustment for that individual. socially, but also I think mentally, because they're going to be in a position where they feel like they need to prove themselves to everybody on why they should have this position, and that they deserve this and that they have earned this position and they want to do a good job. And sometimes that means they feel that they have to do everything, and they don't. A part of leadership is delegation of certain tasks so that you can focus on the things that a leader really needs to develop and figure out with different team members. And you need time to implement systems and strategies, and that might mean that you're not doing your fair share of the closing checklist, because the things that you need to do are different than what the rest of the team does. And so I think that providing support structure and frequent check-ins to make sure that, how you doing? Talk to me. I am now your sounding board. They cannot go to their buddy anymore about issues. And so you need to be their sounding board and their support system and remind them that they're doing a great job. Some people might be critical of them because they got chosen, and their friend didn't. And we just really need to back that up and support them and tell them that they're doing a great job, that you 100% believe in them and that they can do this, and you were there to provide support, whether it be from a systems and strategies implementation or just being that solid shoulder that they can rely on to keep them propped up in the process.
Thanks for those thoughts, Angela. That's a lot to think about. Melissa, what do you see as the biggest mistakes practices make when they promote somebody into these types of roles?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Amy and Angela on, not recognizing that technical skill set is different. It's a completely different skill set than leader or managerial skill set. So that is definitely a big one. What I would add to that also is unintentionally undermining our managers once they are in their role. So the manager, the team can be so used to going to the doctor, the practice owner to get their questions answered. And instead of redirecting them to the practice manager, they may continue to say, "Oh, yeah, I got you," or "Oh, I'll talk to you about that," or "Yes, I'll get that answer for you." And it ends up undermining the manager, or even worse, disagreeing with the manager and saying, "Oh, she didn't give you that day off. Don't, she just didn't know. That's okay. You can take that day off." And it unintentionally undermines that manager's authority and ability to build a relationship and trust with their team as a leader. And it's not intentional. It's coming from a place of support and help and following through with just learned behaviors and, habit. But it really impacts the manager's ability to lead.
I agree. It's like a habit, and to just go ahead and solve the problem instead of really thinking
I'll fix
about, I
it.
need to contribute to this transition and getting this person and running as successfully as possible.
Yeah.
Very great points. Um, Amy, what's one skill that you believe, if developed early, would dramatically change the trajectory of a new veterinary leader?
Again, I sort of sat and came up with this like giant list of things. And as I started to try to, combine and consolidate, what are these all like? What's the root of some of these skills? And for me, really, it's looking at their emotional intelligence. Are they able to, again, read the rooms, have that self-awareness? What are their emotional triggers so they can teach themselves how to be responsive and not reactive? How to have that maturity level of separating, right? These used to be my friends and peers, and now I'm their supervisor. And there's a different relationship inside of work than there is outside of work. And am I able to handle that as a person? So I think really drilling down into that and, one of the things that we've started doing is if we start to see a light or a spark in some of these staff members that we think could be great leaders or develop these new roles for them, as we try to sort of look at emotional intelligence and not necessarily put them in situations, but look at how they respond to situations to get an idea of where they are on that emotional intelligence, and then use that to sort of train or build up so that when they are put into this role, they have a better understanding of what we need to do. And of course, we make them read the book, but that always helps. But I think at the end of the day, like if they can master and understand those key concepts, the rest it's going to be a tough job, but the rest should, at the end of the day, fall into place. If they can master and learn those like 4 or 5 key components of emotional intelligence for us.
Great. Angela, do you have another skill that might be honed in order to help a new leader be successful?
I do. The importance of the business side of the veterinary practice. A lot of these individuals, they don't get in it for business. They're in it for taking care of pets and taking care of team members and, doing a great job and providing your work and growing in your career. And a lot of people don't understand how much those KPIs that, people might gloss over, or, the goals of the company, those are actually the keys to building exactly what they want in the role and exactly what they want for their team. Everything that comes through with those KPIs gives you the tools that you want, whether it's, pay, benefits, whether it's things to do to appreciate your team, providing better patient care, and really understanding the business side of that. It helps you understand why owners and other managers talk about this, and why there is a whole trend regarding this at just about every conference that you go to. It's because it's so important. And even if it's not your jam, understanding it can really give you the fuel and excitement to achieve those goals so you can achieve other people's goals.
I love that, Angela, because you're so right. It's so hard to make those connections as a new leader. And we recently developed scorecards for each of those team lead positions that have very specific KPIs for their individual role. And that's helping them to understand how their actions and their leadership truly impacts certain areas of the practice. And so if any of our listeners would like to try out those scorecards, just give us an email, brenda.medina@encorevet.com, and I'd be happy to send those to you. Melissa, a skill that would really help get them off on the right foot.
Yeah, I think that in addition to the ones already mentioned, the one that comes to mind for me is managerial courage. So managerial courage, not everybody has it. Some people are good leaders and some people really struggle with standing strong in making tough decisions and having tough conversations. And as a manager, you're going to have tough conversations, and you're going to have to make decisions that aren't popular. You're going to have to make trade-offs that you don't want to make, because that's just part of the job sometimes. And if we sit on those too long and we fret over them or put them off because they're tough and we don't want to have them, makes things worse in the long run. And I think if we can learn early on to stand strong in our thoughts and opinions and know what's right, it can really help us be successful as a leader.
Agreed. Agreed. I love all of your points, and I think that that's going to be really helpful as people think through promoting their team members into these roles. One book, because I'm always asked, what's a great book? One book that I always recommend is From Bud to Boss, and I think that really helps with these team members making that transition from being a peer or a buddy to those hard, difficult steps of, hey, now I'm in charge, and they were my friends. So that's another great resource. Well, I'd like to thank all three of you for being on the podcast today, and thank you to our audience for flying with us on Flight Plan Quick Consults. If today's insights helped you climb to new heights, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your crew. Until next time, keep your mission clear, your team aligned, and your practice soaring.